Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be installing Elasticsearch and Kibana in a lab environment at home so that I can send my firewall logs to Elasticsearch and use Kibana to build visualizations and just make sense of the data and see what's happening on my network. So Elasticsearch, this is their website, elastic.co. It's basically a free tool, a free search engine. At the end of the page here, it says the products that started it all, Elasticsearch and Kibana. So Elasticsearch is this search and analytics engine. Kibana is the tool that manages the Elasticsearch cluster, and you can use it also to look at the data and build the visualizations and see what's happening on the network. So I'm going to show you here the whiteboard, how my setup is. So I have a virtual machine that I'm going to use to build or to install Elasticsearch, and another virtual machine to install Kibana, and then Kibana will look at the data in Elasticsearch, and then the data in another video will come from my firewall to Logstash. I'm going to be building this machine, and the Logstash will use filters to parse the data and sends it to Elasticsearch. So right now I'm going to show you here. I have an ESXi servers. I have two virtual machines. I'm going to use them for Elasticsearch and Kibana. It doesn't matter the name here. This is the one that I'm going to use for Elasticsearch. And if you just Google install Elasticsearch with RPM, I'm going to open that, and then I have the virtual machine right here. And these are the instructions. I'm going to just copy and paste. So first of all, we have to import this key, copy, paste, and then it says create a file called elasticsearch.repo and this directory here. So I'm just going to use nano, and then we'll call it elasticsearch.repo, and then I'm gonna copy and paste this content right here. And right now it's gonna look for version 8. Version 8 is out, so Control X and yes to save. And all I have to do is run dnf install and enable repo Elasticsearch. I'm already root, so I'm not gonna use sudo. So it's going to install the latest version. It will say here Elasticsearch, installing Elasticsearch. I'm just going to say yes. And then I'm just going to show you here down in the instructions. You can download it and install it manually as well. But now Elasticsearch in version 8, it enables security by default. In the previous versions, you have to enable it explicitly, but now it is enabled, and you have to, if you want it disabled, you have to disable it explicitly, but of course it's not recommended. So now it gives you a password for this Elastic built-in user. It's the super user. And then it will create self-signed certificates that you can use to authenticate clients, such as like Kibana. It will let Kibana connect securely to Elasticsearch. So I'm just going to wait for this installation here. It will basically print all of this information on the console after it finishes, or similar information. Okay, it's installing 8.2.0. It's almost finished. Okay, see this information here. is basically the same as in this page. So it says it gives you the password of the Elastic built-in user, and it says you can change the password later at any time. I'm gonna continue to enable Elasticsearch because it's not enabled by default. So I'm going to go here. It says running Elasticsearch with systemd. So I'm just going to copy this command, paste it, and then copy this next command and start the service. And after that, I will be able to change the password, and I can use this command here to start the service. Okay, it takes a few seconds to start the service. The first thing after I'm going to do is change the password instead of using this complex password. It is recommended to use something complex, but right now for my lab I'm gonna put something easy. So we'll go usr share Elasticsearch bin Elasticsearch, and there are all of these commands, and I'm gonna use this one, reset password. And there are some options. I'm gonna use -i for interactive. If you don't use -i, it will just generate a random password. So -i and then -u to specify the user, and the user is Elastic. Press enter, and it should prompt you to change the password. This will you will be prompted to enter a password. I'm gonna say yes. And I'm going to use something very simple. Re-enter. Okay. Password for the Elastic user successfully reset. And you can check the status of Elasticsearch service by system controls, status Elasticsearch. It will say active and running. And now you can also check about the running node by using the curl command, but now you have to pass the cert, which is in the configuration directory here. Let's see, Elasticsearch certs, and it is http://ca.crt, and you have to use the user Elastic, and we are curling this the local host. So local host and port 9200. This is what it listens on. You put the password for Elastic, and it will basically give you this output. It will give you the name of the node, the cluster name. By default it's Elasticsearch cluster UUID, and then the version tells you some information about the version and the build. Okay, it will give you this tagline here. We're going to go to the configuration file for Elasticsearch now. So it is in etc Elasticsearch and elasticsearch.yaml. But before that, I'm going to make a copy of this configuration. In the same location, I'll just call it .yaml.backup. So now I'll have this backup file is the original file. And then I'm going to be working on this file. And this is where you change the configurations for your node. So the most important ones are the node name. So I'll go down here, node name. Just call mine chamber 1. Later on I'll add chamber 2 and 3 to build a cluster. Path.data, you can make a custom ones here, but I'll just keep the default ones. Path.logs, and another important settings here is the network host. So my let me see the whiteboard. It is 192.168.25.100. This is what I'm using. 25.100. Network host is the IP address of this node, Elasticsearch node. And then the network port, by default it is 9200, but I'm just gonna uncomment that. And that's all I need in this configuration file. Control X, yes. And to listen to the 9200 port, I have to enable that on the firewall or allow communication to that port. So I'm gonna go firewall dash add port 9200 TCP permanent, and then I'm gonna use as well UDP. Just open the port in TCP and UDP. I'm gonna save firewall dash reload, and we can check the ports that are open. And you can see the ports that I opened, 9200 TCP and 9200 UDP. So this is basically for Elasticsearch, and now I'm going to be installing and configuring Kibana. Same thing, install Kibana with RPM. And I'm going to import this key. I'm going to create this file. And I'm going to copy this content here. It's very important to have or to install the same version of Kibana and Elasticsearch. With an RPM package, they will install the same version or the latest version. They will also always fetch the latest version. So I'm just going to say yes to start the installation. And here in the documentation, it will mention the Elastic built-in user, super user, and how to change it, and how you can create this enrollment token to get Kibana to authenticate to Elasticsearch. But I'm going to be copying the cert from Elasticsearch to Kibana, and that's what I'm going to use to authenticate, in addition to another built-in user. I'm just going to wait for the installation. I'm going to run Kibana with systemd. Enable the service so that if the machine restarts, it starts Kibana automatically. Okay, so now Kibana is installed. I'm going to go to the configuration file. It is at kibana.yaml. I'm going to do the same thing also. Just copy and create a backup of this configuration file. Okay. And the most important pieces here is the server port. You can use a custom port. When you connect to Kibana, you have to use the IP address of Kibana or the FQDN plus this port. Server host, which is the IP for Kibana. And I'm using 192.168.25.120. And then down here, this is server.public base URL. I'll change this later. And I'm going to use elasticsearch.ssl.certificate authorities. It is somewhere down here. Oh, I'm going also to configure this username. I'm just gonna say password, and on Elasticsearch I'm going to change the password for this built-in user. Kibana uses this user to authenticate to Elasticsearch and also this the certificate. So I'm going to look for this setting right. Oh, and this is another important piece. We have to specify which Elasticsearch host we're going to connect to. And because we're using usernames and the certificates, I'm going to use HTTPS. And this is the IP for the Elasticsearch node. It's 192.168.25.100. And one more. Where is... just gonna Elasticsearch.ssl certificate authorities, this setting right here. So I'm going to copy this certificate from the Elasticsearch node. I'm going to put it in this directory in Kibana. I'm going to copy, I'm going to save. So right now I'm going to do two things. So secure copy. Elasticsearch certs HTTP cert to root at the IP address of Kibana. And to this location. And before I move it, I'm going to make a directory. In Kibana. So now I'm going to copy, secure copy from Elasticsearch certs, this cert to my Kibana instance, to this location. Yes, and then I'll use root password for Kibana. And now I moved it is right here. And another thing here is I have to change that password and the built-in password in Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch -reset, what was it? Yeah, reset password. -I for interactive, -u, and you specify the user, which is the Kibana_system. say yes, and then I'm gonna use that simple password of password. Okay, so from the Kibana instance, I changed the password of this built-in user, and I copied the certificate, the built-in or the self-signed certificate from Elasticsearch to Kibana. I'll go to the settings folder, settings again, settings file. So server port, server host, Elasticsearch hosts that Kibana will connect to, the username and password, and the certificate is specified right here. This one. One more thing we have to do in Kibana is allow communication to that port 5601, the default one. This is what I'm going to be using when I connect to Kibana. 5601 TCP. Gonna reload. Install. Just make sure. Okay, this is the port I opened, and now I can use this link to this IP to connect to Kibana with this port. Let me see here. Oh, after I change the settings, I have to do system restart Kibana service. Let's see if it failed or not. No, it's active. So now it sometimes takes a few minutes or a few seconds for the service to come up, but it already came up. Kibana server is not ready yet, so we'll have to wait a few seconds after this service restart. And you see this warning here. It says in a production environment, it is recommended that you configure this setting. It is. I'm going to show you where this is. Go to the Kibana YAML file, public base URL. We'll put the IP address of the Kibana instance, 25.120, with the port. Save, yes, and after we save, we have to restart it. Oh, and then I will have to wait again for it to come back, but that's okay. This way we won't get that warning message. Status is active and running. So far it's looking good. Kibana server is not ready yet, so we'll just wait. And we have the login page, so everything is successful. We log in with a super user, Elastic, and whatever password you put. And this is basically the Kibana user interface where you manage your Elasticsearch cluster and look at your data. Right now we don't have any data, so you can add sample data just to see how it looks like. For example, you have sample e-commerce data, sample flight data. I'm just gonna add this quickly. It will add the data, it will add an index. I'm gonna say view. Let's view the dashboard just to see how it looks like. And you can go back, let's say last 30 days. You can see, you can build dashboards of whatever data you have. I'm going to send the firewall data, my firewall at home, to Elasticsearch and build dashboards from there. So this is all. I'm going to put these side by side if you need the configurations. So in Elasticsearch YAML, the node name, path data, path logs, I kept them by default, the network host, the Elasticsearch node IP, the port, and this is all by default enabled. And in Kibana, what we changed is, or what's important is the server port, the server host, the IP of Kibana, and then this is just to remove that wording at the login screen. What else? Elasticsearch hosts, it needs to know which Elasticsearch. So this is the IP of Elasticsearch, and then the username, Kibana system, password, and I copied the self-signed certificate from Elasticsearch to the configuration directory, or to this directory of Kibana where configurations are. And don't forget to open the ports, 5601 for Kibana, or if you want to change it, and 92 for the Elasticsearch. Okay, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one, configuring Logstash and sending my firewall data to Elasticsearch.